All right, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Forward Thinking Founders, where we talk to founders about their companies, their business for the future, and how the two collide. Today, I'm very excited to be talking to Yaseer Sherif, who's a co-founder of Axiom. Welcome to the show. How's it going?
Yeah, things are good, Matt. Things are good.
Good to hear. Well, I'm looking forward to learning more about what you are working on. For people that haven't heard of Axiom, what is that? What are you working on?
So Axiom is no-code browser automation. That basically means it lets you record the actions you do in your web browser, like clicking, typing, entering data into things, and turn that into an automation. Normally, you have to do that with like a script, but we describe ourselves as a no-code tool.
So walk me through kind of how it works. I myself actually love no code. I love diving into all flows and apps and all that stuff. So I'm curious for myself, if I was to try this out, how does it work and how would someone kind of get started trying out Axiom?
Do you want me to describe it verbally, or I can even share my screen?
I think verbally is fine, just so people that are listening kind of get an idea, and then we can share links later so they can dive in themselves.
So like if you've ever seen no code tools, those usually break down into steps. Like step one, do this. Step two, do that. So step one might be go to a page. Step two might be like click on a button, and you basically allow an automation to be built up by inputting these steps into like a workflow builder. If you've ever used Zapier, it's a lot like that actually. Axiom is very similar to Zapier, but we operate on the user interface instead. So like like text boxes and buttons and the like.
Yeah, that's very powerful, and it kind of leads me to wonder, how'd you kind of come up with the idea? I guess, in other words, what's the origin story here, and how'd you get started?
So this way of automating is called robotic process automation. Unfortunately, there's no robots involved, but it's the bots that people refer to, like bots that you see crawling around the internet and doing things. So that's where that word comes from. And we ran a software consultancy doing robotic process automation. And a few years ago, it got quite big, and a couple of big vendors emerged. There's one called UiPath that a lot of people have heard of. They're worth about 30 billion now. But what we found was a venture capitalists like UiPath, but our customers didn't. But they loved tools like Zapier. People heard of, there's this trend some people talk about with the consumerization of SaaS, where SaaS products like to be more self-serve and consumer friendly these days, and that's something we observed on the ground. So what we wanted to do is take that RPA technology, that way to automate with user interfaces, but make it as friendly as Zapier is to people, where no coders can build bots themselves rather than go to a developer to do it.
And kind of walk me through a little bit as you're building this company out. What's an average day look like for you as you're working on it? Are you coding yourself? Are you, finding customers, fundraising? What's a day in the life for you?
So these days we've been quite lucky in that we have quite good organic growth. Like Axiom is listed as a Chrome extension on the Chrome store, and I think we come up third for browser automation now. So that means we get a fairly big influx of traffic. So we usually start the day actually just by talking to customers. So like with a lot of no-code tools or tools in general, it's not always it's not everybody gets it straight away, right? Like it's why if you've ever seen Superhuman, they do like an onboarding for people where they show people how to use the software. So whilst we don't do that, whilst we don't force that, we allow it. So sometimes we'll be like doing like a Superhuman onboarding. Sometimes we'll be working on customer support, but the day always starts with talking to a customer and trying to fix a problem that they have, and it goes from there basically, which might involve coding.
Yeah, no, 100%. That makes sense. And then I guess one more question along those lines. As you've been building this out, what have been some things you've learned about the market or company building or kind of yourself? Like, as you've been getting this organic growth, what are some learnings that you've come across?
So the main thing is actually understanding the difference between a vitamin and a painkiller and seeing that really borne out. The whole vitamin painkiller analogy, where like some products are vitamins and they make something a little bit better, and other times they're painkillers where it's something that people need. Axiom can actually be both. But we tell people if you want to use Axiom as like a personal productivity tool for something, when you say, oh, it'd be nice if you could do this, it would be okay. You're using it as a vitamin, whereas our best users are using it as a painkiller. Like they have a real pain point. It's those customers that are in pain that you need to listen to the most, not the vitamin users. So that's been a real important lesson.
I like that framework a lot. And I think it applies to a lot in regards to company building. And I kind of want to look out now, like 5, 10, 15, 20 years into the future. What do you see as the big vision for Axiom? Or in other words, what's the big vision and what direction are you rowing in every day as you build out this company?
So I guess there's like a high level thing here where you think about, okay, people spend their whole working day in the web browser, right? Literally your whole working day is there now. And the web browser is a passive medium. But actually it could be more active, it could automate things for you. Right now we're doing that very, is in this no code approach. In the future, we could imagine it being a little bit more intelligent. Perhaps not quite as bad as Microsoft's paperclip from the 90s, which came with really bad suggestions. But there's this idea that actually the web browser, right now you use it to do things, but it could be a lot more active in helping you build automations to speed up your work.
And then in order to kind of make that happen and make it come to life, you'll need some help, right? I mean, it takes a village to make a startup work and scale. So my question for you is, how can the forward-thinking founders community help? Are you hiring? Are you looking for capital? Are you looking for customers or partners? How can we assist?
Well, actually, we're likely to be hiring quite soon. And I think one of the most important things for us is technical customer support. If anybody's listening to this and they think themselves a people person that's also quite technically minded, we'd love to hear from you. But yeah, I mean, we're likely to be hiring for growth marketing as well. We just finished this Y Combinator cohort, so there's usually like a post YC round of hiring.
Cool. And then if someone is interested in learning more or working with you or anything kind of in that capacity, how can someone learn more about you? Do you have a website, social media? Do you have an email address? How can someone get in touch?
Yeah, I mean, you can go to axiom.ai, axiom.ai, or you can email me, yaseer @axiom.ai. And yeah, I'd happy to talk to anybody who's interested in either of those things.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome. It's been great talking to you, Matt.